The U.S. just launched an operation against Iran, and they've given it this really dramatic name, Operation Midnight Hammer.
Yeah, Midnight Hammer. It certainly grabs your attention.
It sounds like something from a movie, doesn't it? But for you, listening, the crucial question really is, what's Russia's reaction been? And what are the global implications of all this tension?
Exactly, and that's the deep dive we're taking today. We've been looking through, quite a few reports, statements, trying to piece together the immediate geopolitical ripples,
Okay.
and also this surprising potential for nuclear weapon proliferation. That's these weapons spreading to new countries
Yeah.
and the economic fallout that could hit a lot of nations, maybe even affect you directly.
Right. So our mission here is to pull out the most important bits from all this information, give you a shortcut, really, to understanding what's going on. We'll hit the surprising facts, give enough context so you feel properly informed.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start right there. The U.S. launches Operation Midnight Hammer against Iran. What was the kind of immediate global reaction?
Well, almost instantly, all eyes turned towards Russia. And that's not really a surprise, is it, given their significant partnership, their alliance with Iran.
Makes sense.
Any big U.S. move against Iran, Moscow inevitably gets pulled into the picture because of that strategic relationship they've built up.
And then almost right away, we got this statement that really sent some shockwaves. It came from Dmitry Medvedev. He's a big deal in Russia, former president, prime minister close to Putin. What exactly did he claim?
Oh, Medvedev's claim was explosive. He basically said several countries ready to give Iran nuclear warheads after U.S. strikes.
Wow.
And the really striking part isn't just the threat itself, it's him saying, even if Iran can't make its own nukes, they will get them. Full stop.
That's incredibly direct.
And he didn't stop there. He explicitly mentioned that Iran and Russia are planning a, quote, coordinated response against the U.S. So that points to direct Russian involvement in whatever Iran does next.
That's a chilling thought, especially the nuclear proliferation angle. And our sources, they seem to suggest a kind of tit-for-tat reason behind this. How do they frame that logic?
Yeah, the analysis highlights this sort of dangerous mirroring strategy. The argument presented is, well, if the U.S. helped Ukraine against Russia, then it's seen as, let's say, fair game for Russia to help Iran against the U.S.
It sets a worrying precedent, doesn't it? Basically legitimizing taking sides in these proxy conflicts.
Exactly. It's an alarming escalation logic.
So if Medvedev says several countries are ready to supply these warheads, do our sources actually name them? Who are we talking about?
They do. The reports specifically list a surprising group of 4 nations.
Okay.
Russia itself, naturally. Then Belarus, which, remember, already hosts Russian tactical nukes and is under heavy Western sanctions. Then there's North Korea, and even China, possibly through some kind of secret mission, as the source puts it.
So Russia, Belarus, North Korea, China, that's the list.
That's the list. The material explicitly states are ready to supply Iran. It's quite a statement.
This potential for nuclear escalation, it must feed into how long people think any conflict might last and how much it might cost. The sources say Iran's been preparing for a 6-month war. Does Russia see it the same way?
Not quite. If you look at Russia's suggested view, it seems they think a conflict involving Israel could go on for longer, maybe beyond a year.
Longer than a year.
Yeah, they draw parallels to the Russia-Ukraine war, which, has already dragged on for over 3 years now. So it suggests they're anticipating a much longer, drawn-out, grinding conflict.
And a longer conflict means bigger bills. Our sources mention a huge cost for Israel's current strikes on Iran, about $1 billion a month.
That's the estimate, yes. $1 billion per month.
So what happens if this drags on, say, 10 months, like some of those projections?
Well, do the math. You're looking at $20 billion. And a key point the sources make is that this money would ultimately come directly from U.S. taxpayers.
$20 billion? That's a massive financial commitment if this conflict keeps
A
going.
huge commitment, yes.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz. It's such a critical choke point for global trade, especially oil. And we've seen journalists in the U.S. asking officials directly, could Iran close it? What's the U.S. position, specifically from Secretary of State Marco Rubio?
Rubio gave a very, very stern warning on that. He said if Iran closes the strait, it would be, quote, economic suicide for them.
Economic suicide. Strong words.
Very. And crucially, he warned it would trigger a massive response, not just from the U.S., but from other nations too. A coalition response.
Okay, so why economic suicide for Iran? And why would it be so bad for other countries? Who relies on that strait the most?
It all comes down to oil, really. The
Yeah.
strait is just this vital artery for global energy. China depends on it the most, they're the biggest importer through there. But also Japan, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, they all buy huge amounts of oil that has passed through Hormuz.
Right, so those big importers, China, India, they have a lot of leverage here, presumably.
Absolutely. The analysis we've seen suggests if Iran did close the strait, both Beijing and New Delhi would be on the phone to Tehran almost immediately.
Really? Expressing disapproval.
Strong disapproval, yes.
Yeah.
Demanding it be reopened. Because something like 20% of the entire world's oil supply goes through there. Neither India nor China wants crude prices to skyrocket. It would hammer their economies.
So closing the strait would actually hurt India and China much more than the U.S.
Far more, yes. That's a key point. The U.S. reliance is much less direct these days.
That's an important distinction. And inside Iran, how is the decision actually made? Is it the parliament that decides to close the strait, or someone else?
Well, it's interesting. The sources say Iran's parliament has apparently approved the idea of blocking the strait, sort of given the green light in principle.
Okay.
But the final call, the actual executive decision to do it, that rests solely with Iran's army command. So it's a military decision, not purely political.
Interesting. Okay, let's circle back to those initial U.S. strikes, Operation Midnight Hammer. The big question everyone's asking is, did they actually destroy Iran's nuclear program? What's the official assessment?
Well, Benjamin Netanyahu gave an assessment. He was careful with his words. He said he couldn't confirm the program was, quote, eliminated, but it was definitely, quote, damaged.
Damaged, not eliminated. That sounds inconclusive.
It does suggest a more nuanced outcome, yeah. Not total destruction.
And the sources dig into the effectiveness of the bombs used, right? These bunker busters designed to hit underground sites. What's the analysis there? Did they work?
The assessment suggests they probably only got as far as the doors of Iran's underground facilities.
Just the doors, not inside.
Apparently not deep inside, no. So the implication is a significant part of the program might still be intact, or at least recoverable down there.
Which leads to a pretty sobering thought. If conventional bombs weren't enough, what else did the U.S. consider? Did they think about more drastic options?
They did. The reports mention that using tactical nuclear warheads was considered. These are smaller, battlefield nukes, not the huge city-destroying kind.
Tactical nukes against Iran's program.
It was reportedly on the table. Former President Trump is said to have backed away, mainly because of worries about the U.S. global image, turning allies against them.
Understandable.
But, and this is a provocative detail from the source, the idea of using a small nuclear warhead is apparently not off the table entirely. If they feel there's no other way to permanently stop Iran's nuclear program.
Wow. Okay. That's something. Let's shift to the operation itself, Midnight Hammer. The sources had some really fascinating details about the tactics, like where the bombers actually came from. It wasn't the obvious route, was it?
No, not at all. This is quite striking. The actual bombers, the ones that delivered the main strike, were apparently sent all the way across the Atlantic Ocean.
Across the Atlantic? How did that work?
It was a major logistical operation. They flew nonstop, refueled in the air somewhere near Israel, never actually landed, and then went on to hit the targets in Iran.
Incredible. And wasn't there also some kind of decoy involved?
Absolutely. A really clever decoy tactic. They sent some bombers from Diego Garcia, that's a base out in the Indian Ocean, east of Iran.
Right.
That was specifically to make Iranian air defenses look that way. I think the attack was coming from the east. But the real punch came from the west, after that long Atlantic flight. Pure misdirection.
And that highlights something crucial about modern warfare, doesn't it? The element of surprise.
Totally crucial. The U.S. itself admitted how vital surprise was for this operation. And the sources really emphasize this point. Surprise attacks are becoming more and more important.
Why is that?
Well, mainly for getting past increasingly sophisticated air defense systems. If they know you're coming, it's much harder. Surprise allows you to achieve your objectives with potentially fewer losses.
So we've covered a lot here. This complex web, military actions, potential nuclear proliferation involving several countries, the huge economic stakes around oil rights like Hormuz, the sheer cost of conflict. It's all interconnected.
It really is. And looking ahead, the sources strongly suggest we should expect something significant soon. They explicitly state Russia is going to do something very big, and that major news concerning Russia and Iran is expected shortly. It's definitely a situation that's still unfolding.
So for you listening, as you watch these global tensions play out, think about this. We've seen the strategic use of surprise, the massive economic leverage tied to oil routes, these potential new military partnerships forming. What completely unexpected alliances or maybe counter moves might emerge next? Given everything we've discussed, what's the next surprise waiting just around the corner? Definitely something to keep pondering.